Hi, this is Kathy Simmons, Addictions Expert, and welcome to the first video in a series addressing the top 3 headaches and frustrations that hypnotherapists have working with smokers. As a bit of background, recently I ran an anonymous survey amongst hypnotherapists to find out what their biggest frustrations with their stop smoking clients were. The reason for this is that I'm soon going to be launching the online version of a training I run called Get Complete Confidence Working with Smokers, and I wanted to make sure that the training covers all of these frustrations. So if you were one of those who responded, I just want to say thank you. The information has been invaluable, especially the comments, so thanks a lot for doing that. I really appreciate it. And the survey had 3 very clear winners. So the idea is that I want to address each of these frustrations in a separate short video. So let's start with the third biggest, and 28% of those who responded ticked this as one of their challenges, and that is that their clients start smoking again. Yep, maybe that sounds obvious, but of course this is one of the things that makes working with smokers so different. It really is an all or nothing thing, isn't it? It either succeeds or it doesn't. They either stop smoking or they don't. So we're going to have a look at why this happens, why people either start smoking again or they don't stop in the session, and importantly, what is it we can do about that, and how we can use this to make sure the change becomes permanent. So firstly, let's have a look at why this happens. The first reason could be because they're really feeling the withdrawals and cravings and actually have a cigarette. Now, withdrawals and irritation can happen if all of the triggers, the cues, the environmental triggers, the emotional triggers and the physiological triggers aren't all fully addressed. And this is a massive subject, so I'm actually going to talk about this specifically in video 2. But this is one of the reasons. And as you'll see, it really is possible to massively reduce or even eliminate cravings and these feelings of irritation completely. So what other things cause people to start again, even those who don't experience the cravings or the withdrawal symptoms? It could be an unexpected trigger. As I referred to just now, triggers really can be divided into 3 types. It's a very useful way of looking at it. There are environmental triggers, there are emotional triggers, and there are internal triggers, and I may refer to that as physiological. It's a trigger due to the levels of nicotine in the system going down. What else? Specific events. Yeah, this does often happen. That if there's a particular stressful event in a client's life, then that might mean them reaching for a cigarette again. Okay, and this would happen if there is still an unconscious belief that cigarettes relieve transient stress. So it still might be triggered. The next one, of course, is actually having a cigarette. Of course, that may be stating the obvious, but having a cigarette can start the whole addiction cycle again. So that we really need to make sure that the unconscious no longer believes there's anything good about having one. So that there won't be any circumstances in which the client decides to reach for one or even thinks it's going to be nice. This one is just so common. It's a self-destruct. It's a form of self-sabotage and all sorts of other unconscious resistance that has not been dealt with. Okay, it could be a belief, something like, I won't succeed. I'm never going to do this. Or, as I just alluded to, it could be an unconscious belief that the smoking is still giving them something positive. Levels of stress can also make a difference to success in the first session. Now here I'm not talking about transient stressful events. I'm making a distinction. I don't have time really to go into that here, but it's what we call chronic inescapable stress. Long-term stress that people can't get away from easily actually changes the landscape of the craving or the addicted brain. This is something I go into in great detail in the training so that you really can understand the impact it might have. But this can lead to people moving from one addiction to another because it's changing the whole landscape, making people more susceptible. So those are the kind of main reasons. So that's all very well knowing that, but what can we do about it? Of course, it's really, really important to use any form of relapse as information. This is not failure. It's not a sign of failure for you or your client. So it really is good to look at what you did in the session that was effective, maybe techniques that did break triggers, certain triggers that were successful, so that you can reuse these. But it's really important to evaluate the reason. Go through that list we just mentioned. Which one or more applies to that client? Great. So it's also worth questioning, is this something you need to deal with first? So, look for any contraindications or chronic inescapable stress that mean you shouldn't be working on the smoking just yet. There might be something else you need to deal with. Okay. Secondly, deal with the unconscious resistance. Now, parts work can be very, very effective here. Maybe some forms of regression, although there are things you need to be aware of if you are using a regression with a smoking client, which again I don't really have time to go into here. It's something I cover in the training. But deal with all of the beliefs that may be stopping them, the self-sabotage. Look for positive intention remaining behind the smoking and make sure that the unconscious no longer believes there is anything positive at all. Deal with resistance first, and then move on to dealing with any remaining triggers, or new ones. New ones might have formed now that they're smoking again. And break these triggers using all the techniques that you have for pattern breaking, such as swish and thought stopping and other pattern breakers. And finally, future pace. Always, always future pace. Rehearsing all the high-risk times as the happy, healthy non-smoker that they already are. Okay, it has been very brief, but I really, really hope this goes some way to helping you understand why people start smoking again and what is it you can do about it. But of course, the best approach is not to let it happen in the first place. The best way to avoid it is to assess for all of those factors before they come in for the first session. I just want you to point to a resource that you might find useful. Using the 7-step framework for smoke-free clients that I teach gives you the absolute best chance of catching everything you need to deal with before and during the first session, and also to assess for contraindications. So if you haven't already downloaded this, have a look at my free guide, the 7-step guide to smoke-free clients, and this gives you a little bit more information on the 7 steps, and you can get it at that link, www.kathysimmons.co.uk/free guide. Great. So the next video will be addressing the second most common frustrations that hypnotherapists face working with smoking clients. I hope you found this useful, and I look forward to seeing you in the next video.